Ready to go here.
Hey, Diane.
Good morning, Diane. Good evening, Diane.
She can't hear you yet. She doesn't have her ears on yet.
Hi, Jane.
Hello, Jane.
Hello.
Okay, we're all on.
Okay.
We're on Facebook too, so I'll let y'all know. Okay, hello everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study on the planetary atoms. That's paper 51. We're on page 584, the third paragraph in the original book, or paper 51, section 4, paragraph 1 in the rest of the books. So let's say a little prayer and we will get started for tonight. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to come together and share this wonderful revelation that you've given us so many years ago now. It's been 1955, quite a long time ago, over 70-something years. So we thank you for this revelation. We thank you for sending your son to teach us. We thank you for the restatement of Jesus's life so that we know exactly what happened to Jesus and what his real mission was. We thank you for the opportunity to share this information with everyone we love and know. And we thank you for the opportunity to learn this in this lifetime rather than waiting for the mansion worlds. We thank you for our many blessings and pray that you'll watch over this world and bless each and every one of us. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen. Amen.
Hmm.
Amen. Amen. Can I have an amen? I have an amen. Okay.
Your Baptist preaching is showing through, you know
I
that.
know. I know it does that every now and then, just comes out, can't help it. Okay, y'all, the beginning of where we're starting tonight is still in the paper on the planetary atoms, okay? But it talks about the 6 evolutionary races. And so we got an idea of what and when they're talking about. I'm going to switch screens for a minute and go over here. Let me stop the share.
Scary.
Share this screen. Share that screen. There we go. All right. And it should have turned blue. Let me make it a little bit bigger here. Okay. Should have a blue screen instead of a kind of a off blue screen now. What I want to share with y'all is this. During the times of the beginning of the Sangic races, this is Amidon, listen to me, Andon and Fonta, okay, the first human beings. It starts in the paper on this, the evolutionary races of color. This is a paper, and this is from paper 64, and I'm section 5. Okay, and the reason I want to share this with y'all is this. We're talking about the planetary atoms, but before a planetary atom comes, normally the planetary prince comes before that, and that's what they're going to talk about here in a minute. But what I wanted to share with y'all is this. It was 500,000 years ago when the planetary prince came to the planet. Okay, and it says right here, 500,000 years ago, the Bandanon tribes of the Northwest Highlands of India became involved in a great racial struggle. Okay, after this struggle was over with, some of the survivors were the descendants of Andon and Fonta. Okay, the reason I want to bring that up was this was the beginning of what they call the Sangic family. Okay, and normally on a planet, the races come gradually a long time with many different families. That's the way it normally happens. Okay, so you'd normally get a red race and then another race and another race and so on. But in our case, we got all 6 of our colored races from the same family. Okay.
That's right.
All 6 races. Okay, it says right here in the second paragraph, a man and a woman living in northeastern part of then inhabited highland region began to suddenly produce a family of unusually intelligent children. This was the Sangic family, the ancestors of all 6 colored races. Okay, it came from one family. All right, and
Hello.
it talks about in the next paragraph. Let me just go ahead and read the next paragraph too. These Sangic children, 19 of them in number, were not only intelligent above their fellows, but their skin manifested a unique tendency to turn various colors upon exposure to sunlight. Among these 19 children, boy, she was busy, wasn't she? Were 5 red, 2 orange, 4 yellow, 2 green, 4 blue, and 2 indigo. These colors became more pronounced as the children grew older, and then these youths later mated with their fellow tribesmen, and all their offspring tended towards the same color, the skin color of their Sangic parents. So all their children end up the same color. Okay. And that's when the planetary prints came. Now, if you want to go out to this paper, there's a chart here that talks about the 6 races. But on this chart is an example of the periods of time and the different mixed races. And down at the bottom here are the 6 original Sangic races, all from the same family. And of course, they were descendants of the Nodites. All right. And I thought y'all might like to know where that's at. Okay. So paper 64. All right. Let's go back down here. Bring this back down. So you can look that up under paper 64 at your leisure and look at it. Let me go back to our original share. Okay, y'all should get the green back, right? Kind of a off green. All right, so let's start here tonight and we'll go forward from this. I just wanted to show y'all that so you can look up the chart, find out about the races. And another thing I wanted to mention before I forget it about the races is this. Normally, the planetary Adam and Eve comes before the diversion of the races. So normally Adam and Eve is on the planet before the races start to diversify. Okay. So that was backward in our planet too. So all 6 races was well going 500,000 years, or not 500,000 years, 200,000 years before Adam and Eve even showed up. Okay. So when Adam, what was that?
Usually Adam and Eve show up before the colors.
They usually show up before the color of the races. Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. And then as the Adam and Eve's children gets to be more and more, then their children mix with all 6 races. Okay. And eventually, over hundreds of thousands of years, all 6 races merge and mix again, and we end up with one race once again. Okay. And it's not that far off from the original race of the red man. Okay. The red man is normally the first race. It usually has the strongest, what they call stock in their DNA. So they're always usually the first race to show up. And after we've remixed, the dominant race is usually the red, the yellow, and in our case, it would have been the blue, but the blue merged and became the white race. Okay. So normally as all these races come back together, the dominant races become the strongest. And so we end up being sort of a dark brown or tan, almost a color of what we would consider the black man now.
An olive color. Oh.
olive color or a dark brown olive race. And all the races will end up looking that way sooner or later. Whether
I
you
thought-
like it or not, that's the way it is,
I
right?
thought it'd be more like the Arabs.
Well,
Maybe.
that is a good example. The Arabs would be a good example, right? And people from India, they have kind of a dark olive or darker color skin. And that's what happens when you mix all the races together. Okay. And it's got nothing to do with culture or anything else. This is just the skin color. All those cultures eventually merge together. Now, it's interesting is this: when you get to the mansion worlds, when you awaken on the mansion worlds, they awaken you in facilities according to your race or race mixture to make you feel comfortable. But eventually, all those differences will be totally gone within a few 100,000 years.
Roger,
Yeah.
but yet we all have the same body. It's just
Same body.
like
It's that's the cultural
culture.
different. Yeah. Yeah. Rodney is the different cultures. Okay, sweetie, you want to take the first one?
Okay. For the 6 evolutionary races. The race of dominance during the early ages of the inhabited worlds is the red man, who ordinarily is the first to attain human levels of development. But while the red man is the senior race of the planets, the succeeding colored peoples begin to make their appearances very early in the age of mortal emergence.
Hey, y'all didn't hear any of that. Okay, there it is. It says
No.
the original race
Heard
is
it.
red man. Did you hear it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had everything muted. I guess because it picked up on Diane's.
How do I mute this one? No.
Okay.
I don't know why it's up top there.
Okay, it's all right.
So that-
you know,
The people that you have on the slide right now is more
Yes.
indicative of the end color.
yes, it would be more indicative of the in color, the mixed races once it's all mixed together. But this is supposed to be a example of the red man or Alaskans, those type of races, which are original red races, or someone from South America. You know, the South Americans have a more of the red in them than other cultures. So this is sort of the color that most of the world will look like when we all merge back together. All right. Now they're going to say some things in these slides that people don't ever like. Every time I go through this, I hear from someone says, y'all are racist and all this other stuff. That's not the case. They're just telling us the way it is in all planets. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Gary, would you take?
Okay, you put me in the middle of the mix, right?
Right. Yeah, they can complain about you instead of me for a change.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. The earlier races are somewhat superior to the latter. The red man stands far above the indigo / black / race. The life carriers impart the full bestowal of living energies to the initial or red race, and each succeeding evolutionary manifestation of a distinct group of mortals represents variations at the expense of the original endowment. Even mortal stature tends to decrease from the red man down to the indigo race, although on Urantia, unexpected strains of
Giantism.
Okay, thank you, appears among the green and orange people.
Okay, so y'all keep in mind, this is what normally happens on a planet, but on our planet, all 6 races came from the same family. They all came from the same stock. Okay, so you can think of it like this: all the variations in the race had the exact same endowment. Okay, that's the
So-
important part here. So when they said the red man stands far above the indigo or black race, this is what usually is on another planet. But on our planet, the red man and the black man had the same parents. Okay,
So they were equal. I mean, so
you
in-
got
on-
it. They were
on
equal.
Earth, because we're so screwed up,
Yeah,
all races are equal. On other
that's right.
planets, it's like it's said here, is what we're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You know, that's interesting. I got to write that down and tell somebody, because I have a friend who reads this, who's a black man who gets all excited about this thing. He has problems.
Eugenics and stuff, when they say the stuff about eugenics and this kind of stuff, he needs to realize it all came from the same source. We all came from the same source, and we're all going back to the same source, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop it, no matter what if you took all the different races that's left right now and you put them on different continents, okay, around the planet, the mixture of the races would still occur.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me tell you why. It's in the DNA of human beings. So if you took all the red men and put them in Canada, let's say, and you took all the super white men and put them in Colorado, okay, within a few hundred, maybe 1,000 years, you would end up with black men, yellow men, red men, all the different colors would show up in the families because of the DNA of human beings. So you can't stop the mixture of the races. It's already there. It's going to come back just like it always will. Okay.
You know, to give you a insight, possibly, it was just been discovered that, you know, the red man wasn't a group of hunter-gatherers, or just, you know, people like we believe they were in the 1900s.
Right.
People don't realize what was the guy that explored North America, Ponce de Leon or whatever.
Yeah.
When he was traveling around, I think looking for the fountain of youth, if there's any truth to that, he was coming across these natives, and what he was doing is infecting them with European diseases. And it's
Yeah.
my understanding that because of that, he decimated 90% of the red man.
Yeah. Well,
And at that particular time, the civilization in North America somewhat rivaled Europe.
actually,
They
the
had
civilization
footholds.
in South America, the civilization in South America, like Mexico, all the way down to the Yucatan, was higher than that in Europe. Okay.
Okay.
And the reason that it got decimated was the Spanish came in, wiped most of them out through disease and war. But the other thing is they doomed themselves by human sacrifice. Hundreds of thousands of their progeny they were killing as sacrifices. They were sacrificing their young, trying for agriculture and gold and all these other things. So they literally destroyed their own society by doing this sacrificial crap. That's the only thing I can call it. Okay.
Could you liken that to our wars, or
Yes,
stupid wars?
of course you could. Yeah, Rodney,
But we're doing the same stupid stuff.
we are. Right.
The last part of the last sentence, I always think of the Jolly Green Giant.
Yeah. Jolly creature. Yeah. It's true, huh?
Well, true.
Jane,
Well,
aren't you glad you live in Canada?
now y'all can see though from that last statement I
Well,
made
true.
about, yeah, Yeah,
But may I ask a question?
sure,
It's a thought question.
sure.
You know, when I don't know what paper we were reading, and we were talking about different subjects, and you said something like about the soup from which all creation evolved. This,
Soup. Yeah, the soup, the plasma, they
I'm
call it.
gonna call it, yeah, because
The
for a
soup.
lack of
Yeah,
better word,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And the way I don't know, is this kind of resembling that when they say that the life carriers impart the full bestowal of the living energies
Yes.
of, yeah, so it
Yes.
is like they contain it all.
It contains
And
all the color, in the DNA they put in there,
yeah,
Jane,
it's
all the
a
color.
prototype, it's
Yeah,
everything.
everything is already in there. Everything that is
Yeah,
possible to evolve is already in this soup, as we called it.
right, right. And it's the
They
same
call
with
it a
these human
plasma, but
beings.
it's a mixture of like DNA. It's the essence of all living things, including animals, plants,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, yeah. And
So
so
it's amazing, like how we only end up, first of all, with 6 combinations, which is
yeah.
pretty good, just with 6, and why it's taking so long for us to evolve.
Well, it's kind of funny, Jane, because our planet is so misaligned with the normal planet. We have to think of other things too. We not only ended up with 6 races, before it was all done, we sort of ended up with 9 races. Okay.
Yeah,
And let me explain what I'm talking about. The 6
okay.
races that were already here, okay, before Adam and Eve came, you also had 2 additional races. And what was that? That was the Nodites, which were a mixture of the Caligastra 60 that rebelled, right? You had that, and you had the mixture, not only that, the Nodites, but then you come along and you think of the mixture of all the other beings that were involved with Adam and Eve. That was the violet race, right? That's another race. And then after that was all said and done, you had a mixture of the violet that had mixed with the other colors, with the remaining, which eventually ended up becoming the pre-race for the Babylonians. Okay, so there's been multiple races, but the 6 basic races they were talking about here are the ones that appear on every planet. And those 6 races are programmed in the DNA in the soup, as you just asked about, Jane. In the soup, it's already programmed in there. And for some reason in our planet, and other than it showing up in multiple families over time, it all showed up in one family at the same time. And then once that diversion happens, it's there forever. You can't stop it, right? So the 19 children that this couple had, once they were out there, they started mixing. Their children mixed, their children's children mixed. So that, it started, it's like putting a little bit of ink in water. When you put that ink in water, you can't take it back out. It goes. So
Yeah, it's understandable though, right?
yeah, it is.
It's wonderful, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the funny thing about on our planet, maybe because of so many things went wrong, our planet, the races showed up before Adam and Eve, way before Adam and Eve. We're talking 240, 60 something thousand years, right? So they showed up a long time before Adam and Eve came here. The other thing that was unusual is it took 500,000 years for Calagasta to come to the planet after they declared it had life. Isn't that interesting?
Let's say that again. After they declared what?
The planet had life.
Oh,
after the life implant. So it was a long time before a planetary prince was assigned to the planet. I don't want to get too far into that. So let's go on. All right. So this is where the races came from. All right. And they talk about how these other races came into being, including the white here. So Rodney, would you take the next one?
Yes. On these worlds, having all 6 evolutionary races, the superior peoples are the first, third, and fifth races: the red, the yellow, and the blue. The evolutionary races thus alternate in capacity for intellectual growth and spiritual development, the second, fourth, and sixth being somewhat less endowed. These secondary races are the peoples that are missing on certain worlds. They are the ones that have been exterminated on many others. It is a misfortune on Urantia that you so largely lost your superior blue men, except as they persist in your amalgamated white race. The loss of your orange and green stocks is not of such serious concern.
Y'all know what amalgamated is, correct? In other words, mixed race.
Yeah.
So the white race was a Heinz 57 race. That's what it was. You know, and all these people during World War II running around saying that the white was the superior race were nuts. You know,
You're talking about
the Nazis.
the Nazis and the Aryan.
The
Yes.
Aryan thing, the whole Aryan thing is a bunch of malarkey. The white race was a Heinz 57 race. It was the race left over after so many mixes of the red with the yellow and the yellow with the blue and the blue with the green and the orange with the yellow. It was like all these races mixed up all together for 500,000 years, and the white race was the appearance of all these mixtures over a period of time. So to say that the white race was the superior race was a bunch of poppycock. Okay, that's just the way it is. But you take crazy people like Hitler and those that were following him and his idea of eugenics. Eugenics is not bad. Eugenics, when used properly, helps you to develop human beings and help them get together so you have the strongest type of human being you can develop. And that was the idea in what they're talking here. That's not what Hitler and their group wanted to do, is it? They wanted to wipe out all the rest of the races except the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white race, which is interesting because the blonde-haired and blue-eyed came from where? Adam and Eve. Even the Mesopotamians and the Babylonians revered blue-eyed people with yellow hair in high esteem. And why is that? Because the DNA that give you blue eyes and yellow hair came from Eve. Okay?
I didn't know that.
Yep, that's the case. So if you have blue eyes and you have yellow hair, it's probably because somewhere in your past, your descendants came from Adam and Eve.
You just made my ego expand.
Yeah. But that's where the blue-eyed come from, because there's statues back in Samaria that had, they had these statues with these big blue eyes because they thought they were something special. Okay. All right. Actually, what was that thing I watched the other night there? UBN, it's a YouTube platter, Urantia Book in the News, I think it's called. But anyway, it's two guys, they have podcasts every week, but they were talking about this just this last week and this mixture of the races. All right. So what I wanted to say is just because you're white doesn't make you special. All right, let's go on. Jane, would you take the next one?
Roger, my internet is cutting up.
Okay, you
It's
want to skip?
probably best if I skip.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take this one. The evolution of 6 or of 3 colored races, while seeming to deteriorate the original endowment of the red man, provides certain very desirable variations in mortal types and affords an otherwise unattainable expression of diverse human potentials. These modifications are beneficial to the progress of mankind as a whole, providing that they are subsequently upstepped by the imported Adamic or violet race. On Urantia, this usual plan of amalgamation was not extensively carried out, and this failure to execute the plan of race evolution makes it impossible for you to understand very much about the status of these peoples on average uninhabited planets by observing the remnants of these early races on your world, because we missed out, right? Because of the Adam and Eve default. All
Which
right.
makes us inferior to the other universes.
Other planets, that's right. So don't get the big head. Diane, would you take
Hey,
the
you
next one?
shrunk that sucker right down, didn't you?
In the early days of racial development, there is a slight tendency for the red, the yellow, and the blue men to interbreed. There is a similar tendency for the orange, green, and indigo races to intermingle.
Okay, so in the early days of race development, these colors seem to be drawn to each other, and they normally marry or interbreed. And the same thing with the orange, green, and indigo races. But war can change this, and that's what exactly happened in our world, right? Some of the races were completely wiped out. All right, Gary, would you take the next one, please?
The more backward humans are usually employed as laborers by the more progressive races. This accounts for the origin of slavery on the planets during the early ages. The orange men are usually subdued by the red and reduced to the status of servants, sometimes exterminated. The yellow and the red men are often fraternized, but not always. The yellow usually enslaves the green, while the blue man subdues the indigo. These races of primitive men think no more of utilizing the services of their backward fellows in compulsory labor than Urantias would of buying and selling horses and cattle.
And that's exactly what happens on all the planets, y'all. So we weren't any different than any of the rest of the planets.
So
Okay.
they have slavery
On
across
all the,
universe.
yeah, start out, there's slavery in all the early evolution of all the planets, all of them. Okay. And it eventually goes away after we become more enlightened and after a period of time. But we've had slaves on this planet since its beginning. Okay. So to think that just because you came from a race that once had slaves, it's not that big a deal, because every single of the colored races have been enslaved at one time or another. That includes the yellow men, the red men, the white race, the blue race, the orange, the black race. All of them haven't been enslaved at one time or another. Okay, there's been no exceptions. So don't feel too special if you came from a history of slaves. Let's see, Rodney, I think you're up.
Most normal worlds, involuntary servitude does not survive the dispensation of the planetary prince, although mental defectives and social delinquents are often still compelled to perform involuntary labor. But on all normal spheres, this sort of primitive slavery is abolished soon after the arrival of the imported violet or Adamic race.
So normally on a normal world, Adam and Eve would have gotten rid of all this slavery. That's what they're saying here. Okay. And the Calagasta 100 should have started it during the early reign of the planetary prince. Of course, we know how that went because they ended up rebelling and then made everyone they could get as slaves, right? All right. Let's see. It's Jane again. That makes me. These 6 evolutionary races are destined to be blended and exalted by amalgamation with the progeny of the Adamic uplifters. But before these peoples are blended, the inferior and unfit are largely eliminated. Did y'all catch that?
Mhm.
The planetary prince and the material sun with other suitable planetary authorities pass upon the fitness of the reproducing strains. The difficulty of executing such a radical program on Urantia consists in the absence of competent judges to pass on the biologic fitness or unfitness of individuals of your world races. Notwithstanding this obstacle, it seems that you ought to be able to agree upon the biologic disfellowshipping of your more markedly unfit, defective, and degenerate and antisocial stocks. What are they talking about? They're talking about sterilization of beings who are anti-social, defective, degenerate, or with other types of problems like that. And what they do is they sterilize them to keep them from reproducing. They just don't go out and kill them. Okay, that's what people think they're talking about here, and they're not. They eliminate the stock. In other words, they eliminate the possibility of them reproducing. So eventually, after 2 or 3 generations, they completely disappear. Make sense?
No, we've regressed. Well, I skip what I said. Forget that. I don't want to bring that up now.
Yeah. So basically, during the reign of the planetary prince and Adam and Eve, this should have been done. Okay, because they were smart enough to make decisions on which families or stock should be allowed to reproduce. Okay. And if you think about it, it's no different than what's going on in China right now, is it? In China, you can only have 1 child, right? That's the law in China. So they literally introduced something along this line to decrease the population because they realized they could not support a population exploding at the rate it was going in China. They didn't do this because they were cruel or anything else. They did it because they were worried about the population surviving because of lack of food and resources. Okay, that makes sense?
It was
So
a variation of what they're advocating here.
that's exactly right.
But there's no selectivity there.
There's no sex selectivity. They're not choosing families that are like, what are they talking about degenerate? If you have someone that constantly is breaking the laws, killing people, murdering people, raping people, doesn't it make sense to keep them from reproducing?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it makes sense to me. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. Okay, 5, racial amalgamation. Let's see here. You want to take?
I think it's Diane's turn.
5, racial amalgamation, bestowal of the Adamic blood. When a planetary Adam and Eve arrive on an inhabited world, they have been fully instructed by their superiors as to the best way to effect the improvement of the existing races of intelligent beings. The plan of procedure is not uniform. Much is left to the judgment of the ministering pair, and mistakes are not infrequent, especially on disordered insurrectionary worlds, such as Urantia. What does that mean, insurrectional?
Rebellious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, insurrectionary world is a world that's in rebellion and disarray, that sort of thing, and that's what our world is right now. It's not changed in, since the original rebellion, really. It's still an insurrectionary world, and we border on disorder more frequently than we do on order, right? We can see that in our world governments, especially the government here in the United States right now. But that's the case all over the world. And it's amazing if you think about it, the death or removal of one person in a government sometimes switches the whole government around to a better position. If you have some of these world leaders that are bound and determined to take over the world, if they die of a heart attack, they can get another leader in there from the same country that will change that whole country around to almost a virtual paradise, right? So it's the problem is man itself. When men allow people to take over what they know is wrong, to start pushing evil and disarray, it's our responsibility to get rid of them. Okay, it's just that simple. It's kind of like this. Let's say you had a big dog. Okay, it's the only example I can think of right now. And you had a chicken coop. And every morning you'd walk out to your chicken coop and you'd find a dead chicken because the dog had got in the chicken coop, wouldn't you? Okay. And this dog, you could not get him to stop eating the chickens to save your life. You tried pinning him up, you tried chaining him up, you increased the fencing around the chickens. You done everything humanly possible to protect your chickens because you need the chickens for eggs, let's say. Okay. What do? Eventually you come to the realization that the dog has to be put down because it's either that or you stop eating eggs. One of the two. And as much as you love the dog, you still don't want to kill the dog, do you? So what do you try to do? You give him away, right? Somebody else. But if you give him away to somebody else that has a chicken coop, guess what that dog is going to do? He's going to keep chickens. He's going to eat chickens. That's right. It's in his nature, right? Not that he's doing anything wrong. It's just in his nature. All right. It's the same way in our world. If you have a leader that keeps doing wrong over and over and over again, no matter what you try to do, he's not going to change because that's in his nature, right? It's just the way it is.
You just advocated war.
No, I didn't. Not at all. Because it's not really another country's responsibility to take care of the problem. Whose responsibility is it?
I see what you're saying. Good. It's the people's.
It's the people's responsibility. If you're living in a republic or a democracy as a republic, then it's your responsibility to remove that person from control. And sometimes it's not pretty, right, to do that. But that is sometimes what needs to be done, right? If it's the judgment of the people. It's really funny. Jesus talked about this in one of the papers, in the Jesus papers. He talks about justice, okay? And justice is not one person's responsibility. Do y'all realize that? Justice is group responsibility. It is the group that is responsible to make the decision on what is justice. And that's why any issue regarding human survival while you're in this world is up to the group. It's not up to the person. It's not up to a single judge. It's to the group. And that's why we have courts. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Now, what they're talking about here is the racial amalgamation, and the plan is left up to the Adam and Eve pair, right? And sometimes they make wrong decisions. But the decision that our Adam and Eve made was a default of their mission and could not be undone. If they just made a mistake, it could have been undone. But what they did was not just a mistake, it was going against the will of God. Now, how many times have we talked about if you want to stay within the will of God, you have to do the will of God. And when you step out that world outside that will of God, what is it? It's sin. So if you have sin, then you have to have what? Judgment. Right? That's all there is to it.
That includes adultery.
That includes adultery. That includes everything. Yeah. All right. So let me put it this way. If you're out messing around with someone else's wife or someone else's husband, it's adultery. And sooner or later, you will have to pay the price of that adultery. Now, what that is, I can't say. With each person, it's different. Right? All right. Let's go on. I think you're up again, dear. No, you just read.
Yeah. I bumbled through
Gary,
that one.
I think you're up.
Yeah. Usually the violet people do not begin to amalgamate with the planetary natives until their own group numbers over 1 million. But in the meantime, the staff of Planetary Prince proclaims that the children of the gods have come down, as it were, to be one with the races of men. And the people eagerly look forward to the day when announcement will be made that those who have qualified as belonging to the superior racial strains may proceed to the Garden of Eden and be there chosen by the sons and daughters of Adam as the evolutionary fathers and mothers of the new and blended order of mankind.
Now, this is the way they keep the race pure, right? They take examples from all the different colored races, they bring them into the garden, and they're paired off with one of Adam and Eve's sons or daughters, right? That's the way it's supposed to be done. And this happens over and over and over again. So then their children will have the violet blood, and they will spread it onward and onward and onward, just like the six original colored races started. It works the same exact way. And this is how you manipulate your DNA and improve the races, right? Now, if you have a group of defective beings coming to the garden wanting to mate with Adam and Eve, do you think that happens? No.
No.
Shouldn't.
No, it doesn't. Okay. Because that's outside their control there. Okay. Rodney.
On normal worlds, the planetary Adam and Eve never mate with evolutionary races. This work of biologic betterment is a function of the Adamic progeny. But these Adamites do not go out among the races. The prince's staff bring to the Garden of Eden the superior men and women for voluntary mating with the Adamic offspring. And on most worlds, it is considered the highest honor to be selected as a candidate for mating with these sons and daughters of the garden.
So this is considered a great honor during this period of time. So everybody competes to become one of the people chosen to mate with the Adam and Eve, or Adam and Eve's progeny, their children. All right. Guess I'm up again. For the first time, the racial wars and other tribal struggles are diminished, while the world races increasingly strive to qualify for recognition and admission to the garden so they can mate, right? You can at best have but a very meager idea of how this competitive struggle comes to occupy the center of all activities on a normal planet. This whole scheme of race improvement was early wrecked on Urantia by Adam and Eve themselves,
Mhm.
right? Okay, Diane.
The violet race is monogamous people, and every evolutionary man or woman uniting with the Adamic sons and daughters pledges not to take other mates and to instruct his or her children in single mateness. The children of each of these unions are educated and trained in the schools of the planetary prince, and then are permitted to go forth to the race of their evolutionary parent, there to marry among the selected groups of superior mortals.
So this is well thought out, right? So after they mate, they have children. The children are raised in the garden. They're educated in the garden. So when they leave the garden, they take the culture of the garden and their bloodline with them, and they go back to their original tribes, and then they mix with the tribes again, right? So it spreads the Adamic blood. All right, Gary, could you take the next?
When this strain of the material sons is added to the evolving races of the world, a new and greater era of evolutionary progress is initiated. Following this procreative outpouring of imported ability and super revolutionary traits.
Evolutionary, Gary, super evolutionary.
Yeah, okay. I said
Yeah,
revolutionary. Yeah,
yeah.
close. Super evolutionary traits. These ensures a succession of rapid strides in civilization and racial development. In 100,000 years, more progress is made than in a million years of former struggle. In your world, even in the face of the miscarriage of the ordained plans, great progress has been made since the gift to your people of the Adam's life plasma.
So even though we got a very small amount of this Adamic blood, it's benefited our planet great amounts, right? At least we got something anyway. All right, Rodney.
But while the pure line children of a planetary Garden of Eden can bestow themselves upon the superior members of the evolutionary races and thereby upstep the biologic level of mankind, it would not prove beneficial for the higher strains of Urantia mortals to mate with the lower races. Such an unwise procedure would jeopardize all civilization on your world. Having failed to achieve race harmonization by the Adamic technique, you must now work out your planetary problem of race improvement by other and largely human methods of adaptation and control.
Now, how would you do that?
It's not being done.
It's not being done. But as individual families, you can do that. You want me to tell you how? Encourage your children only to entertain mating with people of high standards. People, okay? So if your son or daughter wants to go out and date people, encourage them to date people that, number one, are intelligent, are clean, are moral, have some spiritual background, have some belief in something. If you ask those things, at least you're on an upstepping of your family DNA so that as it goes forward, it can improve. But if you go out and find the worst old drunks and crazy people that have no regard for religion, life, anything else, then you're going to get what you get, right? That's the way it works. So it's part of the parental responsibility, but it's also the parental responsibility to teach your children what they should be looking for, right? That's just all there is to it. and I guarantee it can work.
You know, there's a old adage that the daughter looks for a person that's similar to their father, and the son looks for a woman that's similar to his mother.
Yeah.
So that kind of falls in line if the parents are good parents.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, it's kind of funny. Let me give you all an example of something it goes two ways, but let me give you an example of it since it's 6:56. What would be a good example of individuals that kind of do this, what I just said about trying to find the best people? If you think about the Mormons, the Mormon church. Now, the thing I don't like about the Mormon church is this multiple marriage thing, right? It was bad to start out with. But the good thing about the Mormon church is this: they teach their children to be as clean as humanly possible. Don't drink, don't smoke. They don't even, most of them don't even have caffeine or tea or soft drinks and all that stuff. So they look like very clean, upstanding children. They do. You know, when you see them, they look healthy all the time because they eat, they live, and they drink healthy, right? Plus they go to the church like they're supposed to. So that's an example of what you can do as a parent, to find somewhere where you can take your children to church or whatever and give them a moral standing which will improve their future. Okay. And that's what I'm talking about. And the whole world could do that. It would be easier. You don't have to even go to a church, but if you know what you're looking for, when your daughter brings some guy in, you know, and rides a motorcycle up like I used to, rides a motorcycle up and he's got chains hanging off his arms, he's got tattoos all over his neck, you know, and he's smoking a cigarette or whatever. Don't you think you'd want to look at that and say, you know, is this what I want for my son-in-law? You know, so something to think about. You know, you need to have a long talk with your daughter. Okay, let's quit there for tonight. I'm sure I made enough enemies tonight on that one, didn't I?
You know, Roger, you don't know it, but you actually solved a racial problem. I have a black friend that tries to recruit for the Urantia book in the black community.
Yeah.
And they find out that the book, like we said earlier, if you initially read it, the black race is inferior, according to this.
But
But
they're not.
Urantia, it's not the truth.
It's not the truth at all. And if you need me to, you tell him to call me and I'll explain it to him in great detail. It's not.
Well, I don't know. He's still mad at me about our previous argument. So
we've had many black people that's been in our group on and off that are excellent Urantians, you know, over the years. And I don't consider the black race any less a race than any other race in our thing. That's a misunderstanding. And a lot of that came from the people in the Urantia Society, because no one like me took the time to explain to him, this is not what this says. You know, they just didn't explain it. So anyway, I don't know everything, but I get a few things right here and there, you know, but it's just study, right? I study. That's all I do. Okay, y'all, let's say a little prayer and we'll quit for tonight. Father, thank you for bringing us together. We thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share your wonderful revelation. We pray that every person in the world could eventually learn this and learn how much you love us, and learn that sacrifice is not required for your love. It's not required for your sins. There is no such thing as sacrificing Jesus for your sins. That was Paul's idea, and it's not a good idea. We need to spread the word that God forgives sins. He always has. He loves us. God is a God of love, not of revenge. Revenge is not a attribute of God at all, that you love us. And that's what we try to share. We thank you. We give you the praise in your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen.
And please come see us again and again and again. We're going to get you smart sooner or later. Right? At least we'll try to. Let me stop these.
So we're not
recordings.
meeting Thursday.
We're
correct?
not meeting Thursday because it's the 4th, right?
Okay.
Now, next Thursday, we're going to start our new series, right?
Yeah, that'll be
That's
good.
that's the one that you should have started me out with years ago.
Yes.
You've abused me.
But if you stick with me through this series, you're going to have such a great understanding of deity and how this fits in all the way through the book. You're going to be so
Yep.
grateful that you came.
A good class.
A good class. I
It
guarantee it.
is.
So we'll start that next Thursday. Okay, y'all. I love you
Thank you,
guys.
Roger.
Love all you guys
Thank
out there.
you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your 4th of July, people.
You too.
Hey,
Enjoy.
thank
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
love